of people go through life doing things badly. Racing's important to men who do it well. When you're racing, it's life. Anything that happens before or after, it's just waiting.
Matt Williams got a brilliant start from the third row of the grid.
He's gone, he's hit him, he's straight off at the chase.
And a half-second lead. Oh, with the sizzling car in the background.
He has it. Oh, he's round, he's round on the last lap.
There's a massive, massive accident.
Next to the inside, what a move, what a move.
Last time out in Eastern Creek, the Supercars saw its very own leadership spill as Brenton Hobson took over from Lewis Wedding in the lead of this championship. Good evening, viewers. Great to have your company on this Thursday evening as we bring you round 11 action of the AMS Australia Supercars series. On behalf of Short Shift Podcast and Apex Rearwing TV, my name's Stairs. My pleasure this evening to be welcomed by Madbird.
I indeed do welcome you, Stairs. Season 1, Round 11, Barber Motorsports Park. 3.7 kilometres is the track, 11 turns and a total of 48 laps, which gives us a distance of about 177.5 kilometres direction clockwise. Tyre rate is at 1 times, so possibly won't be needing to change tyres, but fuel is going to be ×2, so definitely going to need to be stopping for some fuel there, Stairs.
That's for sure, probably 2 stops, because this is a longer race than we've had in previous rounds, going to 175, 180k length of race as opposed to about 140k in Sydney Motorsports Park last time round. So that'll be very interesting. Obviously this championship following the real-life Virgin Australia Supercars Championship, which headed to the new facility at Tailem Bend on the weekend, and so in lieu of having the real version of Tailem Bend in this game, because it doesn't seem to be available thus far, we are running this circuit, and I think a fine replacement.
Indeed, Skip Barber, a good replacement for the Bend. Same sort of twisty layout. You went to the Bend yourself, Stairs. How'd you find it?
Pretty good, pretty good. It's quite remarkable to have such a high quality purpose-built event in our very own backyard, but not quite as undulating. There's a bit of unnatural undulation in the Bend, but certainly not to the extent of this circuit.
No, lots and lots of pretty crazy elevation changes around this track, which is going to make it very interesting to see how everyone tackles it. Last time out, of course, in my reasoned and well thought opinion, was a bit of a shit show with quite a lot of DNFs and some pretty average racing, it must be said, up and down the field. So hopefully everyone's taken a bit of a chill pill tonight and is ready to sit back and look at the last lap of the race rather than the first lap. Yes,
the attrition rate was quite high. And as you said, the driving standards weren't particularly good in the previous race, but the stewards certainly had a bit of a field day in the next, in the following days after the previous round, and there were numerous yellow cards and penalties handed out. So, as you say, hopefully that leads to better racing tonight. But it's a track that isn't forgiving, and certainly we still expect a fairly high rate of attrition tonight, regardless of how careful the drivers are.
Yeah, especially battling. I'm not sure how much. I'm not sure how. Oh my God! Sorry, I've lost my train of thought because I'm just watching Brenton Foley here, and he is absolutely fanging it around this racetrack, and it is quite something to watch. He's barely in control of that vehicle, so hopefully he tightens that up a little bit. Although, having said that, he's currently 5th on the practice time standings, so. Possibly that's how he's getting that fast.
Well, yeah, he's been really quite entertaining to watch in this practice session, always hanging it out, and certainly giving his tyres something to think about. We'll just take this opportunity, but oh, he's nearly rolled it. He's nearly rolled it, and has got back onto his tyres and gingerly returns to the track. There's a bit of damage there, so he returns to the pits. We'll take a look at the point situation, as I mentioned earlier in the broadcast. Brenton Hobson took out over the lead of the championship from Lewis Wedding last time out. He now has a 5-point advantage over Lewis, but Brenton Hobson struggling with a back complaint today, so whether he actually makes the race remains to be seen. Will Devonish leading the Pro B runners there on 87 points there from the absent Aaron Thomas in 4th place. Matt Williams in 5th, Brock Harvey 6th. Kurt Stenberg climbing his way up the field up into 7th place after only competing in 3 or 4 rounds so far, so a fantastic performance from him so far. Baker, who hasn't been with us for a while, he's still in the top 10, so it just goes to show how consistent he was when he was racing with us. Cracker in 9th, and Aidan Schultz rounds out your top 10 in 10th place. Turning our attention to the Super 2 Championship, and the man we were just talking about, Brenton Foley, with a handy lead in Pro-Am. And his teammate Philip Boak won't be here tonight, unfortunately. We heard earlier from Scruff, so that's unfortunate for him. A couple of absentees. We've also heard Colin Warwick has had technical issues, which means that he won't be able to make it tonight, so that's a bit disappointing. Brendan Ross in 3rd place in the Pro-Am, Luke Joyner 4th, Rob Dunt 5th, Rutledge, Costa, Neville, Keane and Big Dog rounding out your top 10 in Super 2, Madbird.
Big Dog is a fan favourite. Doesn't look like he's on the server as of yet. Top 5 currently is Stenberg, as you would expect, followed right up by Hobson, who hasn't set a lap for quite a while, as you say, back complaint. Brody Steen up in 3rd, who the name is familiar. I believe he's one of those aliens that I hear so much about. Foley, Costa and Johnny rounding out the top 6. Looks like Lewis Wedding has just dropped out, because he was certainly up there a second ago. So hopefully he gets back in for qualifying.
Yes, well, we've got a couple of... He was driving someone else's car. He was driving Scott Murrell's car earlier on, so I'm not sure why that was. He might have got himself DQ'd in his own car, which meant that for practice he had to jump into someone else's car. We've seen a bit of that. Brendan Ross, the same thing. And it can be... It's a strange little pit area, because you've got a fairly roundabout way to get to the racetrack. You've got to turn left, then right, or depending where your garage is. It can be a bit confusing.
Yeah, it's a bit similar to the version of Kyle Army that comes with the game as well. You start facing away from the track, and you have to sort of go around in a circle. And I was doing it in some Formula Retros the other day, and the turning circle wasn't good enough to get out into the pit lane from the back, so that wasn't ideal.
Just seeing Brock Harvey there going out the pit out, so that goes some way to explain the strange route that you have to take just to get onto the out of the pits and onto the track, which could be a factor in the qualifying session. It's just that you can't just turn straight out of your garage and there you are on the track. You've got to go around the garages because you're behind the pit boxes, and just takes that little bit longer. Incidentally, Brock Harvey not observing the pit lane speed limit when he was coming out that time, so it's not something that I've seen enforced anyway, so I don't think it'll be an issue for him.
No, sometimes, especially in practice, it's not really that big a deal. It's more during qualifying when people are sort of, when it actually can affect other people's laps for you to jump out in front. I feel like in practice it's, it's every man for himself, really.
It is. One man who's joined us for the Super Series, and I think we saw him for the first time in the Brock Harvey Invitational, was Scott Nolan, and I believe this is his first race with the Supercars, and I think we've got him down there on the ground there. Scott, are you with us?
G'day guys, how you going?
Very good. Is this your first Supercars race for Automobilista Australia?
It is. It's the first time I've even jumped in them. Was yesterday, so very new at a track I know nothing about as well. So yeah, trying to work it all out on the fly.
It's a baptism of fire, if ever there was one. How are you finding it so far?
Yeah, very different, especially to driving a Lancer, but a bit different to other platforms that I've run on. But good. It seems the physics seems to hold up really well. The plan was that I might have had to have subbed in for the championship leader tonight because of his glass back, but I think he's going to muster up and take to the grid, so he should be good to go tonight.
Sounds like it. Well, looks like the session is just about to tick over into qualifying, so we wish you the best of luck in the race and qualifying tonight. Thank you. Well, Madbird, that's the end of practice, and if the times are anything to go by, Kurt Stenberg is the man to beat in this qualifying session.
Yeah, definitely seems like a 1:23 dead, or as good as close to dead as possible. That's pretty bloody fast, and it's not easy to be fast around this track because you got to be on the ragged edge the entire time, and it's a track that one toe out of line and it will punish you worse than most.
Absolutely right. It's just because of so many corners that go over crests, and that the car just becomes light at the wrong moment. And Kurt Stenberg, once again, we've seen him do this before. He jumps out of the pits onto his outlap before the timer starts ticking down, and sometimes that can mean that your lap doesn't actually get counted as the timer has started now, but he is already making his way around turn 5. So a bit of a strange one, that, because it means that he's, by some margin, he's completely alone on track.
Maybe he likes that. Maybe he likes being a bit of space around him, although you'd expect someone's probably going to jump out in front of him as he's coming around to start his actual flying lap, but maybe just wants that little bit of space to get himself settled on his outlap. I doubt he needs it, considering how good we know he is. And just watching him, I've got nightmares about this circuit. Just coming over corners and the car just jackknifing off into a wall. You got to be so careful with your inputs and your steering angle as you're going around most of these corners.
Well, he's coming around to start his first lap of the session, so let's go on board and take you around a lap of Barber Motorsports Park. The first corner is on you, very, very quick, diving down to the left and then up over the crest, turning right. This is technically turns 2 and 3, even though it seems to be one long, great big corner. And up over the crest of turn 4, that's where the car tries to get away from you, but Kurt Stenberg holding that one nicely. This is an overtaking opportunity, downhill braking into the turn 5 hairpin, and nail the throttle nicely onto the exit through turn 6, which isn't really a corner, but one of those Martin Brundle, it's not a corner, but it is if you're a track map designer. Here we go into the downhill chicane, left, right, very, very difficult corner, that one, and he's done it beautifully. Here we are into one of, you need balls for this part. This left-right fast chicane is incredibly difficult to get right, threading the needle, and then if that's not good enough, here's another one. Left, a lot of curb on the inside, up over the crest. The car can get a little bit of air here, and Kurt Stenberg is he's nearly lost it. That lap is going to be toast. Is he going to back out of it, or is he going to keep going? Just goes to show how easy it is to lose the car. Now he is going down into this left-hander. Pretty much every single corner on this track has some kind of elevation, Madbird.
Absolutely, and I really thought he was going to stick onto that, but he managed to lose it by the looks of it. That's a bugger, but I'm sure it won't deter him.
Sorry, Cam Rutledge DQ'd from the session, so he's obviously driven the wrong way out of the pits. That's the only thing I can imagine that has caused a DQ so early on in the session, and that means that he won't be able to run his car, and we'll probably have to jump into one of the guest cars, so we'll try and keep an eye on that. We haven't seen Brenton Hobson emerge from the pits yet. Brenton Foley's gone to the top of the tree, so he's gone fastest, which isn't too much of a surprise considering that Kurt Stenberg lost it on his lap, and he's on another already, and he's gone purple in the first sector, so we might stick with him for a moment.
Yeah, still a second and a bit down on Kurt Stenberg's practice time is Foley's time, so waiting to see Stenberg put in a proper representative lap time, and Foley looks like has had a shocking second lap, so not going to be looking to improve this lap. But Lee Sanford and Brendan Ross jumping up into 4th and 3rd place respectively. Lewis Wedding also on his first hot lap, so wait to see how he does.
Oh, Stenberg just wide of the apex through there, and onto the marbles. He held onto it nicely. He was 6/10 up on Foley's time, so he should still slot up into pole position by 9/10 of a second, 23.2. That's pretty close to what he managed in practice.
Yeah, quite close, about 2/10, I think, slower. So, it's incredible to know there's still time in that. Lewis Wedding having set a purple second sector, so possibly going to be going fastest overall if he manages to get the rest of this lap lined up correctly. Goes across the line.
Whoa.
Where is he? He is second by about 3/10 and immediately into the wall on the first corner.
And just to highlight this, he doesn't appear to be in his normal car. He's in the Scott Pye Mobile 1 car with the Boost sponsorship on the side there. So for all your Lewis Wedding fans out there, if I can get my words out, that's the car you're looking for tonight. It appears that for whatever reason, that's the car he's running tonight rather than the loose Motorsport car that we normally see in the magenta colours.
The Logitech, I believe, he usually runs. So
Loose is the name of his team, is what I mean.
Ah, yes, of course. Cracker and Cameron Costa, 6th and 7th. Only 7 of our 18 runners so far have actually set laps. A lot of people look like they've jumped out and attempted to do one, but haven't managed to actually complete their lap, which just goes to show how difficult this track is. It's going to be interesting, Stairs, to see how many people actually finish the race tonight.
It is. It certainly will be. Foley's on a PB and Costa has jumped up into 4th place, but still a long way off what Foley's managed. So Foley is seemingly in no man's land there as he wiggles it out of the final corner. I don't think he'll have the speed to jump up into 2nd with this lap. He's found 4/10 of a second. He got ever so close. Only a 1/10 of a second off Lewis Wedding, which was closer than I imagined it might be.
Yeah, definitely. That's blisteringly quick there from Foley, considering he's not even in the same league as Lewis, although I think he has the right to be. He's just currently competing in the lower championship because, hey, he's going to win it. Johnny doing an incredible drift through, what was that corner? I don't even know what number that was, but anyway, it was quite impressive. We now have
just pick up a replay of that.
10 people have now finished their laps, one of whom is not Brenton Hobson. So hopefully for those of us, never mind, he is out on track, so has begun a hot lap. So hopefully Hobbo can get out there and set some times with his back issues that he's having.
Well, it may well be that he just wants to do the one run in this qualifying session and save his back for the race. Because he is in a tense championship battle with Lewis Wedding, so Lewis Wedding will perhaps spy this as his opportunity to claw back some points. Just 5 points the deficit to Brenton Hobson at the moment, and Hobbo 6/10 off as he goes through to set the timer in the 2nd sector. So just the final sector to go, and well, if he remains 6/10 off Stenberg, he'd still be ahead of Lewis Wedding. That remains to be seen.
I didn't even realise that Stenberg had improved. That's an incredible lap
he's
time.
jumped down into the 22.5s.
Of course he has. Hobbo crossing the line and setting a 1:23.7, so very scruffy last sector by the looks of it.
Well, Brody Steens jumped up into 3rd place, slotted himself in between Lewis Wedding and Brenton Foley, which is a fairly small gap to slot yourself into, isn't it?
It is. It's like wedging a credit card between the biceps of a very... I don't know where I'm going with this sentence.
Like wedging a dollar bill between 2 ass cheeks or something?
Oh, well,
Hobbo's up.
He is. Well done, Hobbo.
And a suitable distraction from the sentence that was going nowhere, but he's certainly found some pace here and looks set to jump up into pole position if he can maintain this sort of pace. It's very, very close indeed, so he'll have to nail every single apex. We got Sam Smith in the live chats predicting a 22.101 as the pole time, and he's lost time. 4/10, well, nearly 5/10 of a second down there, but he's still up on his PB and still on target to beat Lewis Wedding in 2nd place. So it's going to be hard to separate them at the end of this qualifying session by the looks of it.
Absolutely is. Lewis in the... And meanwhile, Kurt looks like he's going faster again as a blistering 1st sector. Hobbo crossing the line to go... What does he go?
2nd.
He goes 2nd fastest by about 2/10. So Lewis possibly wanting to get out of the pits get out there and try to claw that time back, because I reckon he's got that time in him. Hobbo driving a little bit injured, but obviously he's like a wounded elephant. He's still scary. He's probably even more scary when he's wounded and his back's against the wall. He's trumpeting out of his trunk, and those hunters are after his ivory, but he doesn't want to give it to him. So Kurt with a new fastest lap. No, sorry, he's coming around.
He's about to. He was down by a tenth at the second split, and he's lost a fair bit in that final sector, so unable to replicate the heroics of his fastest lap of the race. But that still, even though it was 4/10 off his fastest lap, would have been fast enough for pole position, because his advantage over Hobson is 7/10 of a second. And what a shame that he DNF'd out of the previous race, because he might have had a chance of challenging for the championship if he'd got that win last round.
Is he mathematically out of it now, Stairs?
Well, it's very difficult to tell, because there's 2 or 3 rounds that may not end up counting towards the championship coming up, with the endurance thing coming up. I've tried to seek clarification on this matter, but it's about as clear as mud to me, so we'll endeavour to clear that up in the coming rounds.
I hear if you add some water to mud, it does clean it away somewhat.
Still looks like Murray water. But anyway, Kurt Stenberg is a 10th of a second off once more, and looking to improve. Going onto the grass, he's pushing the limits. Anyone else on a fastest lap? No purple sectors on our timing screens. A lot of grey sectors, which means that they haven't improved. So everyone's pushing the limits and no one really getting any dividends for it.
Yeah, only 4 minutes and some change left in the qualifying sessions, so for people wanting to get out there, they're probably wanting to start thinking about heading out now so they can get their out lap and their hot lap in, and possibly another one.
Well, here they come, Hobbo and Foley both taking to the racetrack now, and not actually, there's quite a lot of cars in the pits. We've got 5 people, and those people are Lewis, Wedding. Well, that's not right. We've just seen Foley come out of the track, so there's a little bit of a delay on our live timing screen, unless he immediately exited back into the pits. But the other ones, Luke Joyner, Dwayne Davis and Matt Williams, all sitting in the pit lane at the moment, it would appear.
Foley just coming out on the track now, so possibly have to go back in for some reason. Lewis Wedding, probably the one I would be hoping is going to get out there right now. I know I'm a bit of a fangirl, but he's only 2/10 off of Hobbo for that second position, front row on the grid. He would be wanting to get that, I would expect. Hopefully he hasn't been called away for donuts. I know that's a common issue that he does have.
Stenberg. Common issue.
A common issue.
Yes.
I say again, it's a common issue he does have. Stenberg on a even hotter lap than the laps he has already put in, with a fastest sector overall for the first sector and a personal best in the second sector. Lewis Wedding, Lewis Wedding has come out of his pit box and straight into Luke Joyner, so that's not ideal.
Those two have a bit of history, I think, so Lewis Wedding will not be particularly pleased with Luke Joyner there, but Kurt Stenberg, while you were saying that, didn't go fastest by 0.5 of a second. He's done a lot of laps that would have been good enough for pole position, Madbird.
He has, he really has, and I mean, I guess he can't be hurting himself, can't be kicking himself too badly, because he's still the better part of 0.8 of a second faster than second place, so the chances of someone overhauling him at this stage are slim to none.
We brought up, sorry, Madbird, we brought up Brody Steen earlier, who wedged himself nicely between Foley and Wedding. He's now wedged himself nicely between Hobson and Wedding in that 0.1 of a second, or 0.2 of a second margin between the two, so he's slotted himself in 0.8 behind Kurt Stenberg there, so looking strong.
Yeah, definitely. Finding his way into all sorts of nooks and crannies. Lewis Wedding has had a horrible accident, lost a wheel and a bonnet. He's getting back out the track as fast as he can, flicking the back out. Not sure how much time he's got left.
Oh, he's not got much, 1.5 minutes left in the session, and so he will have to hightail out of the pits and hope he doesn't get any traffic. We're just catching a replay now. Just lost the rear end into that very difficult chicane. And we were expecting to see that sort of stuff. Maybe not quite as early as qualifying, but I guess that's where they're pushing the limits, isn't it, Madbird?
Yeah, definitely. So he's going to just barely get around for a hot lap if he can keep it together.
He's pushing. Those cold brakes have meant that he can't get it stopped for the hairpin down there. And, well, did you see what the timer was at when he made it to the track, Madbird?
I think it was about 125, 126, so he's going to have to blast. It's going to have to be about a quali lap to get around to set a quali lap at this stage, adding in that little bit of time from him getting out onto the track from the pit lane. So he might not even make it. We've got 30 seconds left in the session.
Well, he should make it by about 2 seconds by my maths there. So he's only got Johnny and Costa up ahead of him on track, and hopefully they jump out of his way if he does indeed catch up to them. We don't know well, Johnny doesn't appear to be on a fast lap at the moment, but he's far enough ahead that it shouldn't be an issue for him. So 10 seconds.
10 seconds, yeah.
He's just coming around the final corner now. And that line can't come up fast enough for Lewis Wedding. He's made it just, I think. Is he? Where is he? Where's the line? I think he's missed out. No,
I think he's just gotten in. I think he has just snuck in by the beesest of dicks.
If he hadn't made it, he'd be ruining that locked brake into the hairpin. And now he's got to sit down and concentrate about actually doing this lap. He's made it to set the lap. But what can he do in terms of actually improving his time, which is what he only needs a 1/10 of a second.
Oh, and he's lost a little bit of time there coming out of the hairpin. He got a little bit of oversteer coming out of it, but he could get that back possibly. How's
Meanwhile,
he looking?
Hobson has jumped up closer to Kurt Stenberg, so that particular goal has moved its posts to put that in a strange way, but he's only a 1/10.5 off Kurt Stenberg now.
Lewis's first sector about 5/10 slower than Hobbo's first sector on his previous lap, so not looking good there for Lewis. Second sector is a 28.4, which is also slower. Yeah, he is not going to improve on this lap, so looks like it's going to be fourth on the grid start for Lewis. But all to do, we'll have to think about the fact that Hobbo's got he's nursing an injury. Won't be able to race probably as hard as usual, so Lewis will be wanting to take advantage of that.
Narrowly missed out on being beaten by Brenton Foley there. Brenton Foley less than a 1/10 of a second behind him in 5th place, so that little Steen Wedding Foley battle's going to be interesting.
It's going to be interesting.
Very good. Brody, yeah, well, the thing about Brenton Foley, actually, is that he can't take points off Lewis Wedding because he is fighting for a different championship, being the Super 2 championship. Unfortunately for Lewis Wedding, the 3 guys ahead of him, they all can take points off him. And,
yeah, I'm not sure how much of a reassurance that will be to him.
No, I don't think that I was reassuring him at all. I was just merely stating facts that will probably make him sad. But
Sex, Drugs and Sim Racing has pointed out on the track there is an immense spider in the midfield of this track. Any idea what that's doing there, Stairs?
Oh, it's iconic. Let's see if we can find it and find the iconic Barber Motorsports Park spider. And naturally, I'm finding every camera angle but the one that I'm looking for. We search in vain. We'll get there. Don't you worry. This is fantastic television.
You say it's iconic.
There it is. It's it's iconic. You might have noticed it on the loading screen when you loaded up the Automobilista Australia. That there's a picture of the famous Barber Motorsport Park spider.
Yes, indeed. Any idea why that's there?
We're going to take a quick break, and on the other side of this, we'll tell you all about that spider.
Racing's important to men who do it well. When you're racing, it's life. Anything that happens before or after, just waiting.
And it's lights out and away we go. It's a great start from Sebastian Vettel. We come up the inside. They run, but the Red Bull Racing man has got through. The champion's done the job. They're all gone. They're all gone. Tander's off. McLaughlin's off. Make room. Richard Petty and Dale Earnhardt. There's another 7-time champ. Jimmy Johnson wins his 7th NASCAR Sprint Cup championship.
Welcome back, everybody, to Barber Motorsports Park. And Madbird, you were about to tell us about the sculpture of a spider that decorates this circuit.
Yeah, absolutely. It is prominently placed there at the turn 5-6 hairpin, which is named Charlotte's Web in honor of that spider. So it'll be interesting to see if anyone gets caught in Charlotte's Web today, and perhaps we'll have to give some salutations.
Well, hopefully they don't have an accident that ends their race, or they may well be crying as hard as I cried at the end of that book. But nonetheless...
mate, chin up. Chin up.
What?
Never mind.
So anyway, Kurt Stenberg will start on pole position in about 7 minutes' time. There's no action on the track at the moment because the drivers are going through with a briefing as we speak, which Matt Williams, as the caption, the caption on your screen, Matt Williams in Facebook mentioned earlier today would be the case for this session. And I think generally speaking, a lot of the sessions have had a briefing, but the Supercars hasn't always been one of them. But I think they've found that it's probably necessary after what happened last round.
Yeah, probably just a little bit of a, guys, the race is 48 laps long. You don't need to get the job done, you know, on this corner exactly, regardless of what someone named Heath Dixon might say. You do have some time to think about it. Don't go flinging yourself up a gap that isn't there. Don't take yourself and another person out of a race. Basically common sense stuff, but, you know, occasionally drivers get a little bit hot and heavy, need a little bit of reminding, so I think it's a good idea, Stairs.
Certainly is. Remarkably new track, this one. Opened in 2003, which you wouldn't think by looking at it. It's got this feel of an older style of circuit.
It does. It reminds me of those old Formula One tracks you see, like Zolder and Zandvoort and such, which just sort of small and twisty. They look like they could fit on a postage stamp, but they're terrifying. And some very interesting corners around this circuit, as I'm sure Skip would be very happy about. Yes,
Skip Barber, the legendary motor racing driving instructor, also has a type of car named after him, the Skip Barbers, which anyone familiar with iRacing would probably have driven. So
hell, even I've driven them.
There you go. But
and then I'm not an iRacing person.
Yes, I believe, like myself, I think you let your subscription lapse.
Yeah, indeed. And by let it lapse, I mean cancelled it, because I have a feeling it doesn't just lapse, it just starts charging you monthly, and
yes.
I ain't about that life.
It does remind you, actually, before, and this is riveting conversation for the warm-up, but iRacing does actually send you a reminder just before it renews to let you know, so you do get a chance to turn off the automatic renewal.
Oh, excellent. There's another product by the name. I think it's Adobe, or something like that, which I don't believe does that. And I think, in fact, occasionally just hikes prices without warning for no real reason, despite the fact that it's a digital subscription and no physical price necessary. So I'm not sure why Adobe feels the need to do that. But, you know, we get it sorted out.
Their CEO would certainly tell you that that it's phenomenal value in spite of that. But much like Turn 5 of Barber Motorsports Park, that conversation took a dramatic left turn that I wasn't expecting. And we still have 4 minutes left on left before the race starts.
We
so
usually have something to talk about.
Well, yeah, this lengthy briefing means that we don't have any track action, so there's no one out there practicing their starts or their pit in. Incidentally, a bit of a tricky pit in here, yes.
No, sorry, you go ahead, sorry.
Oh, I've said what I've said. It's a tricky pit in. It comes off the penultimate corner and a narrow run down before you actually get towards the pit speed area, the area where you're limited, where you have to lower your speed to the pit lane speed limit. Got there eventually, didn't I?
What a cluster of a sentence that was.
Yes, but we all know what I meant. But it's going to be tricky, and we mentioned it before, just in passing. But we expect this to be a two-stop strategy because well, some figures coming through from some of the drivers is that we're expecting fuel stint to be somewhere in the area of about 20-21 laps. So it doesn't take a mathematician to figure out that with a 48-lap race, that'll be 2 stops.
Yeah, definitely. And it's going to be interesting to see how tyre wear is around here, as it looks like we've got a couple of people going to track. Especially with some of these corners, you're leaning so heavily on those tyres that you could almost feel as if they're rubbing along the wheel arches. You're so compressed on one side or the other. But the tyre wear is only set to 1 times, so I'm not sure how that will affect it. Stairs, usually you ask me for predictions, mate. What's your prediction for this race?
Well, I'm expecting carnage, to be quite honest, so I'm going to go out on a limb here and put forward Brody Steen as my pick for this race, because I think anything could happen.
Absolutely. Nice one.
Nice one indeed. Incidentally, Philip Boak, who I mentioned earlier on tonight is here. So whoever told me that he wasn't here has made a liar of me. And Philip Boak, he starts in 13th place, so he didn't quite have enough time to get up to speed. But thankfully for he and his teammate Brenton Foley of PBF Race Engineering, they are here to score points.
Yeah, it's just another piece of misinformation from Matt Williams, which is becoming an increasing problem along with his drug habits. So
I don't know if that's increasing, quite honestly.
The drug habits.
Yeah, I think it's just always been at a point of critical mass, has it not?
It's always been a point of contention with him and his church group as we're going into the race session.
Yeah, I believe they call them mosques.
Although, look, no, hang on, sorry, we've had a restart of the warm-up, so looks like the first warm-up was for the briefing.
Just
second warm-up is for everyone to. Second warm-up is for us to slowly kill ourselves. And
10 minutes of filler.
For everyone else to do some laps around the track and get their tyres nice and warm for when they go back to cold at the start of the race session.
Well, I, for one, am looking forward to going through various stats of this circuit, courtesy of Wikipedia. The road course, we mentioned it's 3.83 kilometres, but in Imperial, that's 2.38 miles.
My goodness.
Which is of little consequence, but the lap record, a 1 minute 06 by Sebastian Bourdais in IndyCar, so that just goes to show how much quicker fast open-wheel downforce cars are than big, lumpy supercars.
It's incredible. I never would have figured that.
Inconsequential. Tonight, we'll certainly see some good racing, I expect, but that's just the point I thought I'd highlight.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Stairs. I feel like I know more about the track and a bit more about the Imperial measuring system than I did prior. I, for one, didn't know that 3.68 kilometres was 2.53 miles.
Oh, I've already scrolled past it. Actually, a record that I think is probably more relevant, as it's quite similar to the kind of times we saw in qualifying tonight, was the track record on a motorcycle on this track, which is held by Matt Mladen of a 1 minute 23.6. So well done, Matt Mladen. A little bit slower, but only a little bit. He wouldn't have qualified that far down the grid, actually, would Matt Mladen, who's
on your Matt Mladen,
you know, whose name has 2 consonants adjacent to one another that you don't normally see adjacent to one another in the English language, but there it is.
It's a name that, if you say it more than like twice in quick succession, quickly loses all meaning. Like Matt Mladen, Matt Mladen, Matt Mladen. It becomes just like a jumbled mess in your mouth. So, kudos to his ancestors for choosing that surname.
Yes, they've done a good job. Have Matt Mladen's ancestors. The Barber Vintage Motorsport Museum is a fantastic attraction of this particular track. Many, many fantastic things worth seeing if you're ever in this part of the world, which I have to say it is something that I would put on my bucket list to come to this part of the USA in Alabama.
It's the Bible Belt. I believe, passes through Alabama, does it not?
Ah, Scruff would love it.
He's such a religious man.
He is.
He's Matt Williams, L Chief.
Well, you know,
I believe that the
gotta
driver's
hike.
briefing was.
Got to keep your Bible pants up with something, and why not?
And
with
why
a
not
Bible
a Bible
belt. There you go.
I believe the driver's briefing did end with Amen.
Well, there's quite a few men in this race tonight. About 17 to be exact. Not as much as we've normally had. Unfortunately, a few absentees. Most notably, probably Colin Warwick, actually, who, by the looks of it, would have been in the fight for the pole position, given the times that he saw out on track during that session, and very, very confident in the chat that he could have got up there.
Yeah, definitely. It's a damn shame there for him that he wasn't able to attend. Do we know why? Did he had a issue with his game or something? Did he?
Yes, it was a technical failure. If I go back earlier on and just refresh my memory on what it was, game decided to die. Tried reinstalling, and unfortunately by then it was too late before to get that done before the session started. So. Drastically bad luck for Colin Warwick. And I have to say, I agree with Sam Smith about doing the double header and going to do Talladega. But that would be certainly an experience of American motorsport for you.
Definitely would be. I don't have much. I don't have as I'm now realizing we still have 6 minutes to go and slightly dying inside. I don't have much interest in going to the USA, I must say, but. Going to a few of these tracks for a good racing meet, or perhaps even seeing some NASCAR in a packed stadium would certainly be an experience. Absolutely,
I think I'd love to experience all this stuff. A lot of my travel of this world of ours has been motivated by going to see races. It's, Japan and Malaysia have been one of them. I'd love to get over to Europe and see Le Mans in real life. Maybe the Monaco Grand Prix. And certainly a lot of these American tracks.
I'd quite like to go to Singapore, but to do that I would need to win Cross Lotto.
Yeah, it's a very expensive ticket, that one. I guess they call that the Monaco of the Southeast Asian countries.
I might as well, if I'm going, I might as well spring for a penthouse suite at the Marina Bay Sands and watch it from my floating pool.
Yes, which you don't have. So it's unfortunate that that won't happen.
No, Marina Bay Sands has a floating pool. It's got a pool that goes right up to the edge of the building, and they call it a floating pool.
Oh, I thought you said it was yours.
Well, I mean, my floating pool in the sense that I will have paid for the penthouse.
Oh, I get you. Right.
Thus, I would have some ownership of it. Speaking of people that can get us out of this, Matt Williams, El Chief, what sort of Bible verses did you read during the driver's briefing, and what did you and why did you read them to the drivers today? Perhaps Ulysses 14:12.
Yeah, 100%.
He who does not fill to the brim before race will find God's displeasure mighty by lap 14.
I'm going to be honest with you, I just came in here to see if Brock was about, but apparently not.
Brock, you about?
I'm glad I've stumbled into this church progression.
I'm sure you are glad about it, you church goer, you.
Yeah, I feel as though I've now found Jesus, and my life is better for knowing that he's just outside.
Absolutely. Are you going to now stop the drugs, as me and many of your other loved ones have hoped?
No.
You got me, guys?
Righty, Brock is here.
I'm out. I've got massive tech errors at the moment, so I think that's my night done, unfortunately.
Oh, that's very unfortunate. We had a lot of technical issues tonight, so this is, you heard it first hand, folks. Brock Harvey out of this race, as well as Colin Warwick, and probably a couple of others by the looks of it, with only 17 runners. We normally have up around 20, 23, 24 for this particular series, so disappointing, Madbird.
Yeah, Foley and Lewis have both just dropped out and rejoined the track in the last couple of minutes. So hopefully not some gremlins going on up and down the field as well. And of course, we cannot forget one of the notable absences, Philip Boak, who I'm currently watching go down the start-finish straight.
Yes, Philip Boak, who is very much here, thankfully. It'd be good if some of our other absentees could be not absent. But
I genuinely didn't think you were on there.
well, nonetheless, he is here and he's doing a good job in
Just goes to
fourth
show
place.
it, even a man of God can make mistakes.
Yes, well, I think we're all very pious. And speaking of pie, the car of Lewis Wedding is still the Scott Pye car. So we'll just try and find that for you to just confirm to you that he won't be running his normal livery, as we mentioned in qualifying. He's running his number 2 Scott Pye Holden or HSV Racing Team car.
It's a very eloquent segue.
I mean, he is very good at his job. I'm gonna have to find an even longer bow to sing out "Cheer Up, Sleepy Jean" in this case. No 7-Eleven logos anywhere on that car, Stairs. I'm quite worried.
There you go. And speaking of things that rhyme with Bo, absentee Philip Boak is currently in 5th place. But I guess it can't really read much into these times in warm-up, can we?
Especially not when he's not actually here and he's just a figment of our collective imagination.
What isn't?
So, well, exactly. We are living in a simulation. Elon Musk told me so, which unfortunately for Scruff renders all of his religion moot. But meanwhile,
well, there are some good things about an Orwellian world, aren't there?
Jesus. Oh, we have had to fill time for longer than we had.
There we got 52 seconds to go.
Oh my goodness, count them down, mate. Absentee Philip Boak going through Charlotte's Web. As I've now learned that sequence of corners is known, so that's handy to know before the race. And as you say, setting 5th fastest time in warm-up, although he has taken a, let's say, generous line through that chicane and has hit the wall. So, unfortunately, track limits and walls do exist, even if Philip Boak doesn't.
We got Lee Sanford's practicing his pit entry, so I think that is a smart thing to do because, as we mentioned before, and countless times now that we've had a lot of time to reiterate our points, pit strategy is going to be very important, and 2 visits of the pit lane will probably be necessitated if there isn't a lot of safety car periods, and so practicing that pit entry, a very good idea. Lewis Wedding also doing
definitely.
the same.
Absolutely. Nothing worse than pitting for the first time in live conditions as it was and speeding, ruining your race with the drive-through penalty. So very smart idea from those boys there.
Well, our time has finally ticked down to 0, and boy oh boy, we've seldom had more anticipation for a race than this one.
I am practically wetting myself for something to talk about that isn't religion or Philip Boak's non-existent, Stairs. So I'm very excited to hear those sirens going.
Well, you're not going to be a priest, are you?
No.
No, because you don't like talking about religion. Anyway, Kurt Stenberg on pole position.
These grid slots are quite close together, I'm noticing.
They're very, very, very... In fact, that's probably half a car length there between Brody Steen and Kurt Stenberg. So if Brody gets a fantastic start, he'll have nowhere to go.
Well, even if he gets a half-average start and Stenberg gets a slightly tardy start, Steen's going to have to take some very quick evasive action. The grid slots, grid slots, that is what I meant. Those Synergy and Apex cars looking absolutely bang on right next to each other.
Yes,
Definitely.
They look resplendent, and my goodness, if Hobson gets half a good start, he'll have the racing line, or he'll have the grippy line around the outside of Kurt Stenberg into turn 1. It's a very fast downhill corner, and Hobbo will be looking for a pretty good launch, and quite easy to go around the outside if he is anyway clear of Kurt Stenberg.
Yeah, that's what I was working towards, but then forgot what I was saying, so thank you for reminding me. The grid spots are pretty much directly next to each other, there's not really any real advantage to being third over fourth or first over second, really, which is a little bit of a shame. But good for Lewis Wedding and Brenton Hobson, qualifying second and fourth.
Oh,
they're going to have a good outside line into that first corner. Sorry, go ahead.
We've got a lot of, out of 11th place, Cracker's managed to get himself disqualified, so we'll come back to that, but as we mentioned before, not a rolling start, it's a standing start, because a lot of American tracks are used to rolling starts, so it'd be a bit of a novelty to see a standing start on this track, but no stagger as we mentioned before. But your pole sitter, Kurt Stenberg, he starts ahead, or next to, Brenton Hobson. Your second row is Brody Steen and Lewis Wedding, who are currently in the reverse order of what they should be on the track. Should be Brody Steen ahead of Lewis Wedding, but nonetheless, there they are running swapped around in positions, but they'll occupy your second row. Brenton Foley will start behind them with Cameron Costa for company. We saw they had a fantastic battle for the lead of Super 2 in the previous race. Johnny, on his return to this series, in 7th place in the Shane Van Gisbergen Red Bull Holden Racing car, and the Lowndes car will be occupied by Scott Nolan. Lee Sanford starts 9th, Aidan Schultz in 10th position. 11th is Cracker, but he won't be starting because he's got himself disqualified for some reason. Brendan Ross is in 12th place, so he'll have fresh air next to him, which will be a bit of a nice change for him. Absentee Philip Boger starts in 13th place from Luke Joyner in 14th in the Tribute car. Dwayne Davies in that very familiar Pertec racing car in 15th place. Matt Williams in 16th in a new livery for the Far Canal Racing team. Will Devonish in 17th, and Cam Rutledge rounds out your field of 18, which is actually already down to 17th with the disqualification of Cracker.
There's a lot of smoke on the start-finish straight there. People doing some burnouts to get those tyres up to temperature. Not sure how much that's actually going to help.
A lot of angle on Lewis Wedding's car there, because Hobson hasn't gone all the way forward in his grid slot, and that means that he's all that much closer to Lewis Wedding. Unfortunately, there's a bit of a tricky camera. It's a little bit off to the side, so we'll try and see the whole field just forming up at the back there, and we'll get a good idea of the launch initially off the line. But look, watch out for Lewis Wedding, because he's going between these two if he gets half a good launch. Brenton Foley rolling backwards a little bit. They're going into the middle. They're fanning out. It's a good start for Brenton Hobson, and Kurt Stenberg's going to get monstered. No, he isn't. It's 3 wide, and there's a bit of a collision. Oh, someone's off. Someone's off in the background. Maybe you can find out who that is for me. But Lewis Wedding going up the inside, up into 3rd place. Foley up into 4th. So who have we lost?
Brendan Ross went off at the first corner, off onto the grass, and it looks as if Matt Williams also had a bit of a scuffle with him as he's flinging a cone to the side. But as you say, Lewis Wedding, he's recovered. He's back up into 3rd position. I thought Foley would have had 3rd position off him by now. Brody Steen, shocking start down into 6th position. He just lit up the rears up in the start by the looks of it, and just almost steered straight into the wall. So he did quite well to actually start the race. Cameron Costa has managed to jump him and is right after Brendan Foley, who, of course, as you say, had that incredible battle last week. So it's going to be interesting to see how these two play out for the rest of this race. Stairs.
Absolutely. Well, Brody Steen, unfortunately my prediction looking pretty bad already, with him dropping down to 6th place behind the battle for 4th place with Brenton Foley and Cameron Costa, which incidentally is for the lead of Super 2. But Brenton Hobson, your race leader, coming under some pressure now from Kurt Stenberg, who's got the tyres up to temperature, and can Lewis Wedding hang with these two and make it a 3-car battle for the lead?
I hope so. This would be an incredible battle if we can see Lewis, Kurt and Brenton Hobbo fighting it out for the rest of the race. Lewis is just going to be a little bit patient here, I think. Just wait for these two to take a bit of time off each other. Oh, they're all over each other going through that 2nd and 3rd corner. Just sliding all 4 wheels, but managing to keep it on the road, luckily enough for us. Foley losing a little bit of time to Costa, but Costa not managing to capitalise. Brody Steen still down in 6th, so yeah, a very frustrating start there for Steen.
It was a good start for Philip Boak up into 8th place behind Johnny, and we got a bit of a run. Brody Steen's got a run on Cameron Costa and drove past him like he was standing still, round the outside into the chicane, up into 5th place, Brody Steen.
fantastic work. We've lost Luke Joyner. I only caught the very tail end of it. I saw his rear wing falling off. Looks like an accident. Not sure what it was, but he is out of the race. Has gone back to the garage, so not ideal for him, as Steen is setting about following after Brenton Foley.
Yeah, we're just going to try and find a replay of what happened to Luke Joyner, and it looks like he was helped into the wall by another car, and that car was Will Devonish. And unfortunately, that's the end of Luke Joyner, so that might be something that gets investigated after the race. Maybe Luke Joyner was a bit slower than Will Devonish was expecting, but nonetheless, it is your prerogative as the car following to be careful in that circumstance.
It is. Brendan Ross has go up, and it looks like Matt Williams is also DNF. Not sure what happened there, if that was any damage or just not feeling it. Not sure what happened there. Possibly see if you can find a replay of that one.
We are finding that replay now, and it was unfortunate because we know that Matt Williams didn't have a lot of practice. And let's see. He's just gone off the track there at one of the fastest parts of the circuit. It looks like he might have already been struggling for grip already. Or has he lost it into the wall somewhere? Well, he's gone off, just understeered, plain off the track into the wall, and he lost his wheel in that accident. So that was the reason he had to retire, unfortunately.
It's a damn shame for the very religious man. Obviously, those prayers not doing too much for him. Kurt Stenberg still all over the back of Hobbo. Hobbo had hashtag prayer for scruff. Hobbo had a terrible exit out of the Charlotte's Web corner, and Kurt nearly capitalised but just couldn't get it done before that fast downhill chicane. But he is still all over the back of Kurt Stenberg, and Lewis has dropped off about a second behind these two, so still keeping them honest, but slowly dropping back towards Brenton Foley by the looks of it.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, they're all stretching out a little bit. This is one of the closest battles on track. We've got a few other battles. Boak's somewhere lost a few positions, and he's now behind Nolan, who's up into 8th. He was right up behind Johnny before, so don't know what happened to Philip Boak.
Possibly he wasn't actually here, and we're just not actually seeing this happen.
Very good. Well, if anything, Lewis Wedding has just clawed back a few car lengths on Kurt Stenberg in the last half a lap or so, but it's easy for that to be deceptive when they go into the hairpin and the concertina effect makes itself apparent.
Brendan Ross and Cam Rutledge, probably the closest battle on track at the moment. Brendan Ross managing to get it done into the Charlotte's Web corner, although he's out on the marbles, might not be able to hang on to it. Cam Rutledge side by side with him, heading down towards that fast right-hand chicane, although it looks like Brendan's covered him off.
He's cutting off that route. No way through, says Brendan Ross, and it's single file through this corner, and that means that Cameron Rutledge have to try another time.
Accident. Sorry to cut across you there.
Who is it?
Accident there with, who was it? I'm skipping through. Cracker, possibly. No, he was already DNF'd. Johnny just flung himself into the wall. All I saw was the very tail end of that accident, so I can't give you many details, but I believe he hit the wall. Yes,
and that was completely on his own. And that just shows what happens when the cars get light, the walls are close, and Johnny out of this race.
That is an incredible accident. Just saw the replay of it myself, so lucky to land off the track because there were a couple of cars coming at quite a pace, and good thing they were out of the way when good thing he was out of the way when they arrived on the scene. Well,
Brenton Hobson's not really coming under a huge amount of pressure from Kurt Stenberg at the moment, but he's not shaking him either. It's just hovering around about 7/10 of a second, that advantage, but Stenberg's not all over the gearbox of Hobbo, and as soon as I say that, he closes in a few car lengths.
Commentators curse, but the opposite. Brendan Ross losing it on the first corner, so he's lost that position to Cam Rutledge. Be wanting to get that back as soon as possible.
Now, Brody Steen is having a look at the back of Brenton Foley after passing Costa a few laps ago. He's been just nibbling away at the PBF Race Engineering car of Brenton Foley, and given the pace that he showed in practice and qualifying, he may well have the tools to fight for, might even have the tools to fight for a podium if he can get the job done on Foley, and if he can get it done quickly.
Yeah, just needs to clear him and get some fast laps in, because currently everybody ahead of them is tussling for position. Lewis Wedding, I see locking up into the first corner there, although so is Foley and Steen a tiny bit as well. So it's a hard track on your tyres and your braking. But if Steen can get clear of Foley, he can set about just closing the distance to the front three. And if he catches up, I reckon he can latch onto them like an angry crab, and just not let go for the rest of the race. Foley might have let him in here.
Looks like we've lost Brendan Ross somewhere, so we don't see what happened there. But he was having that battle with Cam Rutledge, who's now all by his lonesome in 13th place, and 13th is last. We've already lost 5 cars: Cracker, Joyner, Scruff, Johnny, and Ross.
Yeah, so 6 laps, and we've lost 5 cars, so not quite an attrition rate of 1 per lap, especially since Cracker actually DQ'd before the start of the race, so not sure exactly how he did that. Devonish and Sanford now, I think, the closest battle on track.
Oh, the battle for the lead's closing up as well. That's about 0.2 of a second. Oh, a bit of a lock up there for Stenberg, and sliding that Apex car all over the place. So Kurt Stenberg of Trans-Tasman Racing looking to put one over Brenton Hobson of Synergy Sim Racing.
Lewis having lost out about 3 seconds now to the top 2, so there's just... I thought that they'd be taking time off each other. If anything, they seem to be pushing each other onwards, and Lewis going wide on the first corner, so driving a little bit ragged himself with his New Age Caravan sponsorship. He's looking at all that grassland and thinking, yeah, I could pitch a tent there.
Yes, and Kurt Stenberg on the previous lap around was just marginally slower than Brenton Hobson, but there's nothing in it. 23.64 for Hobson, which was the fastest lap of the race, and Kurt Stenberg said a 1 minute 23.67.
Yeah, closest battle on track at the moment for the lead, which I guess is something we should be happy about.
We are happy. Well, you're probably not so happy if you're a Lewis Wedding fan, because if anything, he looks like he might be dropping into... I was going to say he might be looking like he's dropping into the clutches of the cars behind, but he was still thick end of half a second faster than Foley. Brody Steen is still nibbling away at Foley, about half a second between those two.
Sorry, I was going to jump in there, but then I was just mesmerised by watching Hobbo and Stenberg going around these corners. I didn't realise how much air they get coming off that fast left-hand chicane just after the back straight, because it felt like Stenberg was slamming onto his right tyres only and braking with only them and not using his left-hand tyres at all, which probably isn't the case, but that's certainly how it appears on my video screen.
Yes, they look like they do get a fair bit of air there. And on the previous lap around, Hobbo once again lowered the bar to a 23.612. But
Hobbo
he just
goes
goes
very
deep, and that's going to allow Kurt Stenberg up the inside there, but there's not really a lot of grip on the inside, a lot of marbles, and effectively a late apex for Hobson. And it's single file, as we mentioned before, through this chicane, so he lives for another day. Kurt Stenberg wasn't quite close enough to to capitalise on that one.
Jesus, Hobbo looks like he's on the very bleeding edge of that of the knife. Currently, he's just wiggling out of every corner through that terrifying chicane. It looks so much like they should not be able to take that corner like they do, but yet they do. Hobbo and Stenberg, it's interesting watching their brakes, both flicking on pretty much at the exact same points on the track, just that split second behind each other. So it's mesmerising to watch these two go about it. Lewis Wedding now 4 seconds or thereabouts behind, but Plus Studies has got about 4 seconds back to Foley, who has Steen for company. Steen looking like he's going to have a go, but not quite close enough into the first corner. But he is certainly all over the back of Brendan Foley, which will be giving him cause to sweat.
Absolutely. It is very, very difficult to get the pass done on this track. I mean, there are a lot of opportunities on paper, but in reality, they're so difficult just on your own, let alone with a car next to you.
Yes.
But the only ones in the 23s are Hobbo and Stenberg. Although on the last lap,
nothing intelligent to add to that. Sorry.
The last lap around, they dipped into the 24s. In fact, Hobbo was 0.2 of a second slower than Kurt Stenberg on the previous lap. Brenton Foley got a corner cut somewhere on the previous lap.
I'm amazed that it's not happening every lap, to be honest, because some of the lines people are taking across these curbs are fairly abusive, beating those curbs like a to coin a phrase of yours, Tez, like a cheap prostitute.
That's certainly not what I use. It's not. Another fastest lap for Brenton Hobson to distract us from that moment. 23.5. So it's I don't know whether the last lap they just made a little bit of a mistake, or Hobson was driving in his mirrors too much. But he's certainly picked up the speed and is trying to break away from Kurt Stenberg. But I don't think he's going to be that easy.
He's locking up into Charlotte's web every single corner. One day he is going to fall into the web and get stuck. I'm calling it now. But it'll just be, I think it's just a matter of when, not if, because he is taking some dangerously late braking points into that hairpin and still barely keeping ahead of Stenberg. So for someone who apparently is driving injured, you wouldn't know it, Stairs. He's doing incredible work out front.
It was marginally offline through that fast chicane, but there is absolutely no way through here. It's just one of those tracks that requires absolute commitment, and you've got to pressure the other guy into a mistake, and Stenberg is doing absolutely the right... Oh, he's got him wheel onto the marbles there. I thought for all money he was going off. Wheel onto the grass even, and has lost out quite a few car lengths, but remarkable that he's still got it on track given that. That was a moment.
I was literally about to say that there's an incredible amount of respect and trust between these two drivers, considering that Stenberg's nose was basically between Hobson's rear wheels. But then Hobbo just broke at a moment that Stenberg wasn't expecting and led to that moment. But Stenberg luckily managing to avoid any horrifying plane crashes and is managing to climb back up behind Hobbo. Although Hobbo locking those left tyres again, he must have locked those up at some stage, because those things are screaming for help.
I'm wondering if that's actually his line into that corner, because he's done that a few times now. We've been watching them just deep into that corner, and there are sometimes two schools of thought with a racing line into a hairpin like that. It's the late apex, square the corner off and just get onto the throttle as early as you can, or just take the slowest, or take the shortest line possible, as Kurt Stenberg has been doing.
It's a damn shame that considering there is a corner called Charlotte's Web, that Matt Webb is not here in this race, because if he were to make an overtake into those corners, we could say he fell into Matt's web, but alas, he is absent, unlike the absentee Philip Boak, who is currently very, very close to Aiden Schultz behind him. So he's going to be wanting to stretch that advantage, because Aiden is looking to take that position at the first possible opportunity.
Well, for the first time, Kurt Stenberg has set the fastest lap of the race. He's done a 23.4, which was about 0.2 faster than Hobson on the previous time around. So with that mistake on the lap before, Kurt Stenberg had a bit of space in front of him to set that fast lap.
Yeah, and the space has immediately evaporated as his nose is tucked warmly and snugly between Brenton Hobson's butt cheeks. He's just the amount of space or lack thereof, more to the point of it, that these two currently have between them. Well, not right now, but through most of the corners of the track for the most of this race is mind-blowing to me, Stairs. I can't follow behind another car that close in a car park without having a horrible accident.
Well, that's why these guys are the sim racing experts, the aliens some people call them, and they're occupying a large portion of tonight's broadcast because they are so close on track. And 12 laps now gone. We are expecting not too many more, maybe 8 or 9 laps on the fuels before they have to make their first stop, but the strategy may well be the deciding factor here. If you get an undercut with some new tyres, that could be decisive.
Yeah, considering how close Stenberg and Hobbo are on track, if Stenberg pits a lap earlier and just punches in a really quick lap on some fresh tyres, he could easily get the jump on Hobbo. So Hobbo's going to have to be right bang on with his stop. Although,
What happened there? I think he had a moment over that crest. Remarkable that he was able to hold it together and not lose enough speed, or too much speed, so that Stenberg could overtake him.
Just nowhere for Stenberg to go with it. That must be so frustrating because, yeah, he left the door wide open, but unfortunately the door was not wide enough for Stenberg to fit through on that occasion. He's going to have to go around to the living room and see if he can slide through the French doors, but he's going to have to probably make them himself out of larch.
Unfortunately, when the door was open, he was still walking up the garden path and wasn't even on the porch yet, even though he spent most of this race on the welcome mat. But nonetheless, he's caught right back up now, and he's absolutely ready to... I mean, if Hobbo doesn't really look like making a mistake through this final sector, that's where we've seen Stenberg be a bit rough, and that's where Hobbo probably looks the strongest.
Stairs, I want to take this moment after that beautiful garden path welcome mat analogy to just say what a privilege it is to commentate with you.
Oh, we got someone in the pits. Sorry to cut Lewis Wedding in the pits, and thank you for that. And sorry to cut across your whatever the term is, compliments. I don't get many of them. Lewis Wedding is in the pits, and unfortunately the cameras are dog shit, and we can't actually get a great view of the pit lane. We're going to go up and over. Where is he? Oh goodness. The camera is
stationary for about 11 seconds by the looks of it, so he's
on the move
leaving it now. Looks like he has got some fresh tyres and presumably has filled the tank right up.
Well, he's going to hope that he's found some clear track to get a
coming out behind Aidan Schultz in 9th position by the looks of it, with a few seconds back to Will Devonish. So unfortunately, he's going to have to get the job done over Aidan Schultz and Philip Boak at this stage, but wouldn't expect that to be too difficult on much fresher rubber and with a higher skill set, must be said.
So the answer to my question from before is no, he's not got some clear track, but Aidan Schultz been quite obliging there and jumping straight out of the way of Lewis Wedding, realising that he's not on the same strategy and there's no point holding him up. So our eyes turn, with that being the end of lap 13, our first pit stop of this race, our eyes turn to the leaders and they've stayed out.
Interesting. So it'll be very good to see when they come in and how much time Lewis Wedding is going to gain back on them. Looks like he's currently about... Oh, I can't do maths that good. He's about 40 seconds off the lead is currently Lewis Wedding.
Yeah.
So get to see if that comes down. Next up... Now, has a moment coming over that crest, but managed to hold on to it. Next car up the road for Lewis Wedding is Philip Boak, who luckily isn't here. So presumably that'll be an easy overtake.
Won't have too much of an issue passing a car that isn't there, because the one thing we know about things that aren't there is that they don't occupy any physical space. But nonetheless, we've got Brodie Steen and Brenton Foley are still nuts to butts on the track there, and Foley's been doing a good job of keeping Steen behind him for the last 10 laps. Haven't been occupying much of our broadcast because of the battle up front, but Foley hanging on to that podium position so far. But of course, once the pit stops shake out, he will be in net 4th place.
Yeah, I'm surprised that Steen hasn't managed to get it over him. Probably just shows what a talent Foley is. Should really be in the top class. Is sort of
Hobson's lost the lead. Let's go back and find a replay, see what happened there, because it's happened in the last half a lap, and he's gone deep at that single file chicane down at turn 7, 8. And that has handed the lead on a silver platter to Kurt Stenberg. Kurt Stenberg said, my goodness, I'm used to smorgasbords, but tonight I'll take this. And he is now in the lead by the tune of 1.3 seconds.
Yeah, I'm surprised that Hobbo didn't take that opportunity to duck into the pits, because they'd already lost the lead. So at this point, all he's going to do is take more life out of some already worn tyres. He should have. I would have thought should have jumped into the pits, gotten some new rubber, since he'd just lost the lead to Kurt Stenberg anyways, and isn't looking like he's going to catch up. Stenberg was looking faster, considering how all over the back of Hobbo he was. It was just there was nowhere to pass, so I can't imagine Hobbo catching back up on him unless Stenberg makes a incredible blue.
Well, it was a waiting game for Kurt Stenberg. He looked like he was just applying the blowtorch to Brenton Hobson until he made that mistake. We're only about a third of the way into the race, so he was in no means by no means in any rush. to get the job done and just let Hobson make the mistake on his own and stayed in the lead for a remarkable amount of time considering the man is nursing a back injury.
Yeah, definitely. And his left tyres, just looking at the stats, are currently worn incredibly. So they must be crying for some new rubber. But he's saying, nope, none of that. We've got to set about catch up to Kurt Stenberg, which currently isn't working. He's lost out about 0.2 over the last couple of sectors, down to 2 seconds behind Kurt Stenberg now.
And Lewis Wedding has dispatched with Scott Nolan, who is behind momentarily, and up into 5th already, and will now be able to use his fresh tyres to try and set some fast laps, see if he can get himself anywhere near closer to Brenton Hobson, with Brenton Hobson having gone off the track in recent laps.
Yeah, absolutely. Lewis Wedding now 39 seconds off of Hobson. 39 seconds off of Hobson and 41 seconds off the lead. So those couple of laps of getting past Phil Boak, Dwayne Davies and Scott Nolan have certainly cost him some time. Hopefully he hasn't taken too much life out of his tyres, because that'd certainly be a waste. He's wanting to use that to catch back up.
A couple of cars in the pits at the moment. We've got Aidan Schultz and Lee Sanford making their first pit stop.
So the leaders, Kurt Stenberg, Hobson and Foley and Steen, come to it. Still haven't pit yet. Currently, they are the only, they are the most front-running cars that haven't pit. Lewis Wedding.
Well, Hobson's in.
As of course, Hobbo is in.
So Hobson making his pit stop. So Kurt Stenberg has stayed out, and so Hobson trying for the undercut, and we'll see where he emerges. And once again,
a very short stop by the looks of it. Not sure how long he was stationary for, but he's certainly going to have the job done over Lewis Wedding. Lewis is just coming around the penultimate corner now, and coming now onto the start-finish straight. A cool 13.5 seconds behind Hobbo, so I feel like Hobbo can't have changed all 4 tyres or something.
Well, can you check that for us with the Control D option?
I can indeed. It looks as if Hobbo has changed all 4 tyres. Can't say what sort of fuel load he's put on.
Well, that's a kind of strategy that we thought we might see, splitting the race almost into thirds exactly. And Kurt Stenberg, we're getting word down on the ground from Colin Warwick, who's not in the race on the live chat. He confirmed to us that Stenberg was saving fuel, but once he got past Brenton Hobson, that went out the window.
Yeah, certainly. So Hobbo now off on the grass a little bit, but managing to hold it together. Stenberg, Steen and Foley, the front runners, although Stenberg is now in the pits. So his closest rival was Brenton Hobson, who's currently coming around the penultimate corner. This is actually going to be quite close, I think. Hobbo is now coming around the last corner.
Foley in too.
Yep, so Hobbo up to full speed, coming down the start-finish straight. This is going to be very close between him and Stenberg. Stenberg just reaching the end of the pit lane now. So they're going to be side by side. Hobbo has the job done into the first corner. Stenberg loses out in the pit stops. He's going to have tyres about 1.5 laps, 2 laps younger than Hobson's. But still has managed to lose that to Hobbo. So I wonder if he stopped a little bit longer, maybe put on a little bit more fuel than Hobbo did. Or otherwise, Hobbo just put in some banker laps while he was on those fresh tyres.
Well, it's just gone to show how effective the undercut can be. So our eyes turn to Brodie Steen now, who stayed out. What will the gap between he and Brenton Foley be after he makes his pit stop? Because they were very, very close on track. Maybe Brodie's missed a trick by not coming in before Foley.
Yeah, so, and whereabouts is? It looks as if Cam Costa has DNF'd. Sorry, I was looking to see
that's unfortunate. We didn't see what happened to him, so that's the 6th car out of this race.
Yeah, I was just going, oh, I wonder how that battle between Foley and Costa's go. Oh, it isn't. Okay, so I think everyone has now pit except for Brodie Steen, who has opted to stay out once again. starting the 20th lap of this race. So not even half distance yet, Stairs. Goodness me.
It's a long race, and like probably a bit longer than these guys are used to. Some of them race the WEC series on alternating Sunday nights, but the Supercars up until now has been largely composed of 140-kilometre races. It's probably a good bit of practice for the endurance events coming up at Sandown and Bathurst, which incidentally Brock tells me is going to have a new tyre for the Supercars, which has been tested by real-life supercar drivers, I'm told. So obviously something much to be desired. So we rejoin Brody Steen as he comes around. It's gone around again. So we would have expected to see him in the pits fairly shortly, but he's stretching this stint as long as he possibly can by the looks of it. Maybe
Yeah, definitely.
in an effort to not change his tyres once.
Looks as if I can see his pit crew are coming out into the pit lane, so he might be going in on this lap. He's coming around the second to last corner now. Looks like he's nope. He's said nope, not for me, nor am I, as he's gone around the last corner and heading on to start his 21st lap without a pit stop. So his tyres must be hurting at this stage, but and he's losing time hand over fist to the cars behind him that have pit. Hobbo and Stenberg are only 4 and 6 seconds behind respectively. Lewis Wedding 19 seconds behind, so expecting to lose the place to those three once he does pit and find himself back off the podium. So he'd be wanting to get it done sooner rather than later, unless he's trying to somehow push himself to a one-stop, but that isn't physically possible, is it, Stairs?
Well, not without some help from the safety car, I should imagine. But Brendan Foley, his middle sector of the previous lap was almost a second faster than Brody Steen on its own. And now that he's come across the line to finish a full lap, he's taken 2.5 seconds, no, sorry, nearly 2 seconds out of Brody Steen on that lap. So Brody Steen, I don't know what he's trying to do, whether it's to avoid pitting twice for tyres, and so going as long as he possibly can, maybe a short middle stint just to get the fuel. Well, yeah, it could be a splash and dash at the end, or it could be a short middle stint, just so that he doesn't have to change tyres twice.
Jesus, Lee Sanford.
Oh, Lee Sanford's off! Lee Sanford's off! And front, and he was a lap down there. So what on earth happened there? That was a really bizarre incident. We're just going to try and pick up a replay.
He got the incredible swapper on coming out of the penultimate corner, and was Brody Steen and Hobbo were quite lucky to avoid him as he sort of swung across in front of them.
So we've had some cars come into the pits, and one of those is Cam Rutledge. And that is the only one of the numerous cars that are in the pits. So Lee Sanford's managed to continue after that underwear soiling moment. So he obviously wasn't too badly damaged. I don't actually managed to keep it out of the wall, didn't he?
He did, which is quite impressive in and of itself. Just hearing from somebody that. This can't be right. I'm hearing that Cameron Costa and Phil Boak came together and it broke Cameron Costa's suspension, but I think that must be misinformation, because as far as I'm aware, Philip Boak isn't here tonight.
Well, that's unfortunate. So hopefully, well, I guess that's. Oh, and off goes Brenton Hobson. Oh, he's kept it together somehow, but he's lost the lead for a second time now. Kurt Stenberg goes through into the lead, and Brody Steen, they've almost caught up to him. He stayed out for another lap. This is all converging. Will Devonish is a lap down, and he's in the middle of the sandwich here, but Brenton Hobson out of the lead.
Oh my God! He's doing himself a misjustice. A misjustice? I don't think that's a word. Anyway, he's not doing well. Is Hobbo to in the mind game that is having Stenberg behind you? Although, to be fair, who would?
I think he's just driving on the limit, Madbird, and that was always going to happen, because he's always putting his tyres under a little bit more pressure than Kurt Stenberg by asking them to live a little bit longer till the end of the race with the early pit stop. And Stenberg's just sort of driving his own race and seems to be taking care of the tyres a bit better. And when the opportunity comes, Stenberg is all too happy to say, yep, I'll take that, thank you very much. And he'll be wanting Will Devenish to jump out of the way, and indeed he does.
Yeah, and as you say, Hobson's making a bond and looking at his tyres and say, mate, die another day, because he wants those things to last a lot longer. I'm not proud of that one.
Oh, that's a lot of air for Stenberg. Whoa!
Yeah, he's just setting off after Steen with a vengeance. Steen surely pitting this lap. He must be, and he is. Because what's the point? At that point, all you're going to be doing is holding up Kurt Stenberg, which I guess could be a strategy call. But
well, he's made it 23 laps. If he was able to make it one more lap, then a one-stop would have been possible. But 23 and 23 is 46. You're 2 laps short of a one-stop.
Unless he somehow manages to save some fuel somewhere around the circuit. If there's a safety car later on, perhaps he might be alright. Maybe he's banking on that, on a couple of laps under safety car, tootling around at 6th gear to save him that extra lap and a half of fuel. But that is, yeah, he's stretched that right to within an inch of its life. So it'll be very interesting to see how that plays out at the end of the race. Looks as if Steen has lost out the position to Foley again, so that must be frustrating. Foley about a second ahead of Steen, but Steen on much fresher tyres.
Well,
than
it's
Foley.
remarkable actually to me that Foley isn't further ahead, because he was 2 seconds a lap faster than Steen, and they were pretty equal on track before the pit stops. So I feel like Foley's made a mistake somewhere, because he should be further up the road.
You would expect so. Yeah, not sure what's happened there. But he does seem a little bit ragged. He's locking up quite a lot into a few of these corners, so possibly has some tyre damage beyond their youth.
It could still be advantage Steen in this battle, because I mean, if he can make the tyres last 23 laps, he surely isn't going to change his tyres at his next pit stop if he's able to do that. And so it would just be a very short splash and dash pit stop for his last stop. But Foley, having pitted much earlier, will definitely be changing tyres, I should think. And so that would mean a longer pit stop for Foley.
Steen about 30 seconds behind Hobson and Stenberg currently. If Stenberg and Hobson both have to do a full stop for full fuel tank and possibly for new tyres, and Steen just does a short little spit some fuel into me tank and I'll get out of here, stop, then that could potentially be interesting at the end of the race, albeit on much older tyres, but still.
It could be, but he's already dropping 2 seconds a lap to the leaders, so 10 seconds and that's out to 40. 10 laps, I beg your pardon, and that gap would be already out to 50 seconds, because it's sitting at about 30 now.
Well, don't I feel like Ted from Sky Sports bringing up controversies that don't exist?
Yes.
I couldn't think of Ted's surname. Sorry.
Kravitz.
Kravitz.
Yes.
Ted
Well,
Kravitz.
maybe you should find the piece of paper where you wrote that and put it in some recycling.
Put it in a plastics bin.
Yeah, recycling bin. Very good. We've lost Lee Sandford, incidentally, so maybe he did have damage from that incident, or maybe he had some damage before that incident at the final corner, and it means he has become the 7th retirement of this race, down to 11 runners already. A lot of points going begging tonight.
I really hope that this high attrition rate isn't driving people away from the series, because the only reason that we're allowed to have such a higher attrition rate is because we have such high attendance. So if no one rocks up and the couple of people that do rock up crash out, then it's going to be a very boring series.
Well, I think this series has generally been fairly healthy in numbers, and it's unfortunate just some of the absentees, such as Philip Boak, have come up with have not been here because of various technical issues, and so it's just one of those things.
Oh, it's just it's the ongoing joke that just keeps on giving. Speaking of people that aren't here, Stenberg is catching up to Philip Boak.
Stenberg not here.
No, Stenberg is here, but he's catching up to Philip Boak, who isn't here, and is currently the last runner not to be lapped.
Well, that's about to change.
I imagine that won't last much longer. Stenberg is catching him at a rate.
Oh, and out of the way, Boat gets up onto the outside of turn 1. Careful on those marbles. They're slippery. And he's let the leaders through nicely. I think I've heard a collision somewhere. We wait to see whether it eventuates. No, I'm lying.
Sometimes you have to be a little bit, you have to be a bit like a cat. And you just, your head snaps up, you go, oh, I heard somebody, it sounded like a wing. It sounded like a wing falling off. That definitely sounded like a side mirror snapping, and then you just have to jump through the field. Where is it? Where? Oh no, never mind. Someone just rubbed a wall.
Purple sector for Kurt Stenberg in the first sector last lap round, but Hobson had the fastest middle sector of the race. So swapping sector, fastest sector.
Oh, Devonish out of the race.
Oh no, well let's see what's happened to Will Devonish. Let's catch a replay. It happened a little while ago, so we'll rewind the tape and see what happened to him. Because, goodness me, what we did mention this was going to potentially be a high rate of attrition, and it's almost like he's missed his braking point at turn 1 and went straight on. It comes up on you very fast, that first corner, and that's all she wrote for Will Devonish. Out.
It's certainly a commitment corner. You have to just flip it in and hope that the car sticks.
Well, oh, and Dwayne Davies letting Lewis Wedding through. So all of a sudden, we don't have an awful lot of battles on track. Funnily enough, this battle for the lead, 0.6 of a second, is still the closest battle on the racetrack by some margin. The other one being Brodie Steen and Brenton Foley, separated by about a second. That one looks set to be decided by strategy. This one may well also be decided by strategy. If I'm Brenton Hobson, I'd try that undercut again. That would not worked a treat last time.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, good lord! I do apologise. I don't know why I'm yawning. This is actually quite thrilling to watch. Hobbo, yeah, definitely with that undercut, came out much further ahead of Stenberg than I think even he would have been expecting. So. But Stenberg's will wake up to it now. He knows that it's possible, and Hobbo's a lot closer to him than he was when he pit the first time around. So Hobbo's got to make sure to time that pit stop. When do you reckon it would be, Stairs?
Well, it's certainly not this lap. The first time around, what was about lap 16 or 17? So extrapolating from that,
33, 34.
Yeah, I'd say whatever it is, and he's just set the fastest lap of the race, so he's dropping down into the 23.3s. Track's gripping up a treat. I would say you do whatever Kurt Stenberg's not expecting. So Kurt Stenberg probably be expecting the undercut. Do it a lap before Stenberg expects.
Oh. It is now Hobbo who is frustrated heading into Charlotte's Web. Has a much better run heading down towards the corner than Stenberg did, but just nowhere to go with it, and just had to tuck up behind him and follow him around for another track. That one warm beer that I've had today is coming back on me shockingly, so I do apologise.
Well, shouldn't be drinking warm beer. So.
It's all I had.
Ah, yes, but if all I had was a... Well, never mind, I won't finish that sentence. 0.3 of a second.
Has gone backwards, apparently. Looks like Steen has got the position on Foley, so I'm not sure what happened there. Thank you to Sam in the chat for spotting that one. Not sure how far back that was to see if you can find a replay, Stairs, but Steen is
rewinding the tape. And it happened a little while ago, so we obviously didn't have our wits about us there. Good job to eagle-eyed Sam Smith for noticing that one, and it was turn 2. Just got a little bit wide. The front of the car going up in the air, and he's been struggling with that in practice. He's actually rolled the car twice at turn 2, and it's bit him here. Thankfully, he didn't roll the car, just lost a bit of time, but that means Brodie Steen is up into 4th place in this race.
It's interesting. Oh, it looks as if Scott Nolan's had an accident.
Oh no.
Scott Nolan has fallen into, well, not fallen into Charlotte's Web, but just before Charlotte's Web. He was off the track. Not sure what happened there.
Yeah, over the crest of turn 4. So these crests biting very hard later in this race. And that was a very sudden retirement for him. He was tracking along quite nicely indeed. And just the car getting light over that crest, straight into the wall, which is ready to receive him. And Scott Nolan is looking like he's going to be out of this race. He hasn't gotten back to the garage just yet, but
he is trying to get it going again.
I think he must have lost the engine.
Yeah, potentially. Can't see.
Yep.
Yeah, and there he goes back to him.
That's it.
So, 9 runners out of the race.
Safety
so far,
car.
So
Safety car.
Half the field. Safety car. Oh, this is exactly what Brody Steen needs. And no, it is Brody Steen that has caused the safety car. As I say that, he's flung himself into the wall. I just skipped through the field and saw him nose in the wall, bonnet all over the place. So everyone is in the pits. It is a frenzy in there at the moment. Cam Rutledge, Stenberg, Hobson, all in the pits. I imagine Lewis Wedding will also be ducking in, as does the non-existent Philip Boak. So everybody taking the opportunity to do a quick stop. Oh my goodness, Stairs. What happened?
Well, he just understeered. Is what it looked like. He went straight off at the hairpin at turn 5. Maybe distracted by the stationary car of Scott Nolan on the inside there, who at that stage was still trying to get his engine started. But unfortunately, Brody Steen, who was doing a really solid job from a strategy point of view, and up there fighting around 4th or 5th place out of this race, and Brenton Foley going to go up into 4th place, and unfortunately that kind of neutralises the race from the point of view of the strategy. All these interesting strategies that were playing out have now been equalised by the safety car, sort of meaning that they all come in at the same time. So
yeah, so it's basically just a sprint to the end. And honestly, between Stenberg and Hobson, I'm not sure who I put the money on to win out in that, because they've both made errors. They've both been in the lead commandingly for several laps at a time. I think Stenberg might have it over Hobbo just barely. Just Hobbo's made a couple more slightly bigger errors. And of course, Lewis Wedding is going to be right back up into contention as well with this, which is good for him, although I think he'll have a few back markers between himself and the leading pair, which he won't be happy about.
And there's some back markers that have been picked up by the safety car ahead of Kurt Stenberg as well. And that's
look,
Aiden Schultz.
The non-existent Philip Boak is the lucky dog and is able to overtake the safety car and unlap himself from the field. So it'd be nice if he was here to accept that.
Well, that's lucky dog.
Not quite the same as Big Dog, who is another notable absence, just like Philip Boak.
Well, he was here earlier on, wasn't he? Or am I dreaming things?
Big Dog? No, he wasn't here. I made mention of the fact that he wasn't here when you said Big Dog during the point stand.
Oh, yes, that's right. I was talking about the point standings then. I have said his name tonight. Always a good night when you get to say his name. But
what name was that?
Big Dog!
Big Dog! Oh, we love him.
We do?
Never spoken to the man.
Oh, yes. I mean, I'm reliably informed that he is a karting champion. One of the guys who competes in the higher kart championship set up by Brock Harvey, I'm told. So that's always something much to be desired. So there goes Philip Boak, non-existently taking his lap back.
Good on him.
So Philip Boak, who is now actually behind his teammate Brenton Foley in 4th place after getting his lap back. So
mate, Phil's going to be gutted when he hears that he would have had the opportunity to overtake himself or unlap himself from the field had he been here. That's an absolute blow.
It is. I find it hard to see Kurt Stenberg losing this race personally. I just think in that first stint he seemed to just always have the pace over Brenton Hobson. And, I mean, I don't really know what was going on with him in the second stint. Maybe he didn't change some tyres or something like that, but, or maybe he was just saving fuel.
Cam Rutledge unlapped himself as well. I'm not sure if he's allowed to do that. He wasn't the lucky dog, so not sure what the go is there. Lewis Wedding, however, as a result of this, is right on the back of Hobson as they're coming around the penultimate corner of the track. Safety car is into the pits, so it is a shootout between these top 3. And I mean, we mustn't forget Foley and Dwayne Davies just behind them, although we can forget Dwayne Davies because he's a lap down. But the 3 at the front, they are nose to tail heading down the start-finish line.
Not many cars left in this race, but they're waiting for the green, and they've got it. Have they got it? A line. You can't pass before it, but here we go. It's a great restart for Kurt Stenberg. He just covered the inside a little bit, and there was no way through for Brenton Hobson, who goes a little bit wide through too, but Lewis Wedding is not close enough to capitalise.
No, definitely not. It looked like Stenberg was cruising along in first gear of all things down the start-finish straight, which gave him incredible acceleration once that green flag dropped. Managed to hold himself ahead of Hobbo. Hobbo's gone very deep. Lewis up the inside. Lewis up into second place. Oh, although Hobbo is right behind him, so Lewis is going to be sweating in that seat. This is the highest. He's going to be needing oxygen. He's so high up the field at the moment compared to how he has been for the rest of the race. Stenberg still in the lead, now stretching that advantage. Hobbo is going to be cursing himself for going deep, falling into Charlotte's Web. What did I tell you, Stairs, that he would go into Charlotte's Web, get stuck?
Great prediction. And Brenton Hobson down into third place. Kurt Stenberg would have looked in his mirror and thought, my goodness gracious me, it's Christmas, birthday, Easter, all wrapped up into one neat little package.
Absolutely, and he's going to be thanking his lucky stars, although he does have to hold on to this for 15 laps, which it's a very high-pressure circuit to race around at the best of times, let alone when you got someone like sorry, not Philip Boak. He's not here. Brenton Hobson right behind you.
But he's not quite close enough to make the move into turn one, though, but he was trying his best and just got a wheel on the grass ever so slightly. Kurt Stenberg hasn't streaked away quite to the extent I thought he might have on the first lap there. Maybe he's made a little bit of a mistake, and we've lost... Well, Brent Foley, what's happened to him? He's still running in fourth place, but I think he's had a bit of a mistake somewhere because he's lost a lot of time. 11 seconds already. What on earth happened there?
Hobbo's gone very deep there at Charlotte's Web again, just not hooking it up through that corner tonight. As Lewis Wedding sets about holding Stenberg honest through this tight little chicane. A lot more confidence than I'd have. Squares it up and sets off after him as Hobson's slowly losing out on this battle. He's got to get his head right and just knuckle down and hope that Lewis makes a mistake. Lewis
Wedding has come alive in the closing stages of this race, so a second bite of the cherry for him, and he's equal to the task. Look at him all over the back of Stenberg.
I feel like we both sort of wrote him off a little bit as they were all forming up behind the safety car, but good lord, all it took was one little opportunity, and he is making the most of it. And there's exactly Bomber on a sweater already, Mum Spaghetti, as he gets a tank slap.
Oh, that's going to give Brenton Hobson an opportunity, and Kurt Stenberg can breathe as they go into turn one with a sizable margin. But how much longer will that last? Because Kurt Stenberg just had a wheel on the grass as they went down into two, and it's all converging again. That carrot, oh my goodness, it is dangling.
That carrot is swinging back and forth like a yo-yo. Hobbo just desperately trying to pressurize Lewis Wedding, and it appears to be working. Lewis is making a bunch of little mistakes, nothing too big so far, but he's just losing grip on the exit of corners and not managing to get the speed down. Hobbo with a better run, but again, there's nowhere to go on this track. You basically just have to wait until the car in front makes a mistake that out and out drives him off the track, because you can't really make the pass on the track itself.
Did they all take new tyres at the previous pit stop?
Let me just have a look at the telemetry. It looks like currently Hobbo's tyres...
Oh, Hobbo going around the outside, and this is a very, very fast part of the track, and a huge amount of air for Lewis Wedding over the curb, and nearly loses it twice. Amazing that he didn't lose it completely, but couldn't get it stopped for the next part of the corner, and Hobson through. Sorry, you were saying about the tyres.
No, I feel like it is somewhat academic. That was, good lord. That Lewis was just unsettled by Hobbo right alongside him into that corner, as anyone would be, I think. But currently, it looks as if everyone did put on fresh tyres, as you'd expect. It looks as if Hobbo's wearing probably the best, actually, out of the three of them. Actually, no, sorry, Stenberg's are much better than Hobbo's, but Hobbo's are better than Lewis Wedding's in turn, but not by much. There's a cigarette paper between them, so... one more little mistake and I reckon Lewis can get right back up into that fight, but I just can't see it happening. Hobbo's got the carrot now rather than Lewis, so he's going to be setting off after Stenberg, and upset that he lost those couple of laps to be pressurising him, because Stenberg's streaked off to a 1.5 seconds advantage.
Yeah, Wedding's already a 1.5 seconds back of Brenton Hobson there and in third place, as you mentioned, losing his carrot, the pointiest of all root vegetables, but nonetheless it certainly has a pretty strong effect, as we've seen in the early stages of the after the restart.
Nothing like having something to chase. I think Stenberg is possibly the most impressive at the moment, just driving out there by himself, and I'd fall apart knowing that I'm in the lead of a race with 12 laps to go, but he's holding it together nicely, which I suppose is the difference between someone who's competent and someone who isn't.
Other battles on the track, we got Dwayne Davies is about 2 seconds behind Aidan Schultz, so we'll keep you abreast of that battle if we see a change for position. And Kurt Stenberg and Brenton Hobson immediately jumps into the 22s. 22.9 for Brenton Hobson. I was about to mention how Stenberg had set the fastest lap, but Hobson eclipsed it almost immediately.
And Lewis losing time hand over fist, now 3.5 seconds or thereabouts down on Hobbo, so just doesn't have the pace to live with him. When he was up amongst it, he could hold them back and chase after Stenny, but as soon as they were in clear air, those two just showing they're in a complete class of their own tonight.
Absolutely are, but Stenberg might be a bit worried seeing that time flash up on the screen from Hobson. That was 0.3 of a second faster than his fastest lap of the race.
Absolutely, and we have the I think we've gotten down in the pit lane. We've got the debutant tonight in the V8 Supercars, Scott Nolan, who DNF'd back on lap.
Oh, sorry, Hobson goes deep at penultimate corner, and that's going to allow Lewis Wedding through because he's stuck in the gravel track trying to recover. There goes Lewis Wedding up into second place. Hobson trying to get the grip down. He'll be furious with himself, Madbird.
Good Lord, I have not heard that tone in your voice for quite a while. That is a damn shame there for Hobbo. Yeah, we would have taken some life out of his tyres. Lewis cannot believe his luck, I imagine, although he's currently drifting around the first corner, so calm down, Lewis, so just keep yourself together. Now setting off after Stenny, but yeah, I imagine Lewis was just thinking, what do I have to do to keep with these guys? Then Hobbo just showing that when you're driving on the edge, you take a much bigger punishment for the smallest mistake, losing a good 8.5 seconds there to Stenny, down into third place now. So Lewis now with the job of keeping him behind and keeping his head on straight.
Yes, it's 2 seconds though, it's not a big gap. I believe you had Nolan down there in the pits, did you, Madbird?
Yes, Scott Nolan, who DNF'd with a dramatic crash on lap 28. You down there, Scott?
Yeah, g'day guys, how you going?
Not bad, mate. What happened?
Just understeered wide there, coming out of, 3, and yeah, just in the wall, and I think I stalled it, and I got no way to start it, couldn't find the starter, so that was race done, unfortunately. Wasn't really sure what happened, but on reflection it looks like I stalled it. Yeah,
I did see you were shifting through the gears a little bit, and the car was moving, but like not with just due to the slope.
That's just the undulation, I think.
Yeah, needed someone out there to give you a push start, I reckon.
Yeah, correct.
So that's a shame. How did you find the cars up until that point, though? Were you enjoying the racing?
Yeah, I was enjoying it. It was pretty nervous. Not a lot of confidence, especially on old tyres. So after sort of 9 laps or 8 laps, tyres really struggled. So something I haven't run on, on the older tyres here. So just trying to get used to it. But yeah, it's just now sitting back watching this battle unfold and seeing if my teammate Brenton can catch Lewis and keep that championship fight alive.
I imagine that's not going to be an issue. I can see them being joined at the hip for the rest of the championship. But thank you for joining us, Scott. Appreciate your insights.
Yeah, thanks, guys, and great work from you guys as well with the call. So keep it up.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Fantastic.
Appreciate it. But, well, Madbird, that is one of the perils of not running auto clutch, is that if you do have a spin, you've got to be very quick on the clutch so the car doesn't stall. But now Lewis Wedding is coming under a fair bit of pressure from Brenton Hobson, and there's quite a few laps still to go. This is for the championship. There's just 5 points separating them. Brenton Hobson is currently leading that championship, but he's not leading on track, so the points would close up if it finished like this.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like Hobbo really has the right... Oh my god! Oh, Lewis has lost that position there to Brenton, who is up into second place. Lewis with a huge slide coming out of turn 4, I think it was, and just managing to hold on to it. That was very dramatic. That nearly put some poop in my pants, that did.
He held on to it, that's one thing. He just doesn't seem to be hanging onto his tyres the way that Hobson and Stenberg are. And he'll be hoping for another mistake from Stenberg. But now, with that mistake from Brenton Hobson and the subsequent battle with Lewis Wedding, he's 7 seconds adrift of Stenberg, who seems to be quite sublimely leading out front. He's setting 24s, but not as fast as Hobson, but with amount of time left in this race and the lap times they're setting, I don't see Hobson getting up to where Stenberg is and passing him for the lead without a significant error for Kurt.
Yeah, no, definitely. Ironically, I was about to say, I feel as if Lewis doesn't have the right to be leading Hobson at the moment, and
He's
then
not.
Lewis corrected that himself. So Hobson has had some incredible pace tonight, and enough to rival Stenny, who of course we know is one of the greats. So don't take that away from him, I guess. 6.5 seconds he's got to catch up on Stenny, which has come down from about a second and a half. Come down about a second and a half from the last lap. So he is doing it, but he's going to be balls to the wall for the entire last 7 laps to get there.
It'll be a popular victory. He's got a lot of support in the chat from the iRacing community, does Kurt Stenberg, and it would be his 3rd win in 6 races in this particular championship. So he's, I mean, we've said it a few times, he exploded onto the scene, and certainly one to watch, well, one that we like watching. So let's watch him. Here he is, coming through the penultimate corner.
Beautifully done. He's, I think 3 would be a season record so far, wouldn't it? With the highest is 2 wins from, I believe, Hobbo.
Goodness gracious me, you're right. He hasn't won since Winton in round 6, which was, well, we're at round number 11 now, so you do the math. It's quite a long time between drinks for Brenton Hobson.
5 rounds ago, Stairs.
There you go.
Took me that long to take.
I asked you the question.
To take 6 from 11.
Yes, we had Darwin, Montreal, Queensland Raceway, Eastern Creek, and now Barber Motorsports Park, which is 5 racetracks.
Lewis must have had another incident. He's dropped back to about 7 seconds behind Hobbo.
You have to be careful, because he's only 10 seconds ahead of Foley. Doesn't want another make another mistake.
Although Foley wouldn't be taking points off him,
That's
I
a good point.
What is
Pride.
Philip Boak? If Philip Boak was here, is he in Pro AV
He's
or
Super
Pro
2
AM?
as well.
Okay, so he wouldn't have to worry about Philip Boak.
He has to worry about Aiden Schultz, who is a full lap behind, so I don't think he has to worry, quite frankly.
So he's probably safe in 3rd at this stage as Lewis, unless he actually destroys his car or his computer or internet craps out, which I don't want to jinx him, but it has happened before.
Lonely old race.
Sorry, you go.
This lonely old race, we're going to have quite a few people because of the way the points work in this particular championship, and once this championship is over it won't be the case anymore, but there are people who haven't finished this race who will get points. Unfortunately, that's the way it works in this series, but it won't be the case in future series.
Thank goodness for that, because that makes literally no sense. Hobbo... Sorry.
What?
Literally no idea what I was going to say.
Well, Hobbo is currently driving down to the turn 5 hairpin, and there you get a good view of how the track crosses. Is quite close to it. What's up?
Oh no, just I remember what I was going to say. Possibly Lewis has some damage. He's locking up into most of the corners, and his pit crew are sort of doing that thing where they're half in and half out the door, like they're looking back at the screen going, wait, are we going out? And then like they stick their head out and go, wait, he's not coming. And then they put their head back in, are we going out? So I'm not sure if he possibly has some damage from whatever it was that has caused him to be 10 seconds down on Hobbo. But it looks like he is limping maybe a tiny bit.
More than a tiny bit. He was 6 seconds off the pace on the previous lap. He did a 1 minute 30, Foley behind him in the 24s, so all is not right with that car. He may have come into contact with the wall somewhere, and that car isn't handling quite well. It looks actually doesn't look too bad here. Maybe it was just a one-off mistake and isn't an ongoing problem for him. But it's obviously not gelling with that HSV Mobil 1 racing car.
Yeah, it's just not been his night tonight. Just hasn't had the pace to live with Hobbo and Stenberg, and when he's had opportunities, he's handed it right back, unfortunately. So he'll be disappointed with that. We'll be looking to come back strong at round 12, which is at
the next round. Well, that was the cluster. We won't say that word, but we're moving into the Endurance Racing Championship, which I'm not actually 100% sure whether that will be part of this championship or not. So
excellent.
Let sleeping dogs lie on that one. It may well be some time before we come back to this particular series in its current format because of the endurance races that will occur in the interim.
You and me commentating those, Stairs?
I would like to think so, but depending on the way that the days fall, they might be swapping them onto Sunday, so I'm not sure what the go is there.
Excellent.
Excellent. But Hobson hasn't managed to make too much of an impression in Kurt Stenberg. That is still a 7.5 second margin, and I think Hobson may well have just given that one up by now. He was... well, he's matching 10th for 10th Stenberg in the first and second sectors of this lap, but needs to do a heck of a lot more than that to put him under any pressure with just 4 laps remaining.
Yeah, the sting's gone out of it a bit now, I think. Lewis 13.5 seconds off of Hobbo. Hobbo's nearly 8 seconds off of Stenberg, and then an 8-second gap back to Foley from Lewis. And a minute and 3 seconds from Foley back to Boak, and then the rest all lapped. So not really any battles on track. Closest one actually is Dwayne Davies and Aiden Schultz, which is just under a second. So it's actually quite close. Not sure how we haven't really seen much of these guys for the rest of the race because we've been spoiled for action at the top. But it looks like from glancing up and down the field throughout the race, looks like they've been pretty close together throughout all 40 laps.
Yeah, Davies has been nibbling away at that advantage that Schultz has at him, and Schultz has gone deep at the hairpin and allowed Davies up the inside, and a little bit of a twitch from the Aiden Schultz car number 11 on the exit of the hairpin, but there's no way through there. Davies backs out of it before they get to the hairpin, to the chicane, and Davies looking racy here. He could have this position. He smells 6th place.
He does. I believe that his household waste smells pretty bad since I had his household bins taken away for being mean to me.
That'll make sense to literally no one here.
Hopefully Scruff's listening, because I think he's the only person who would appreciate that. But he is all over the back of Schultz going through these last couple of corners, so we might have a little bit of action here to watch for the last couple of lap, Stairs. Thank goodness.
Thank goodness indeed. Well, we'll have to keep an eye on where the leaders are. They're just coming towards the end of lap 45 now. I believe these guys are a lap down, so they will do 47 laps. Dwayne Davies unable to make the move on Aiden Schultz on that lap, but they seem to have their advantages in different parts of the track. It's seesawing back and forth just a bit.
Yeah, it is. Previous lap we saw Dwayne Davies get alongside coming out of Charlotte's Web, so see if he can get it on there again. Looks like he brakes just a little bit later than Schultz. He manages to close up a couple of car lengths, but still too far back to have anything near a go down this back, or sort of middle straight, I guess, down into the chicane. Schultz taking a good line there, and nowhere for Dwayne Davies to go, although he does catch up quite a bit,
yeah,
but then loses out again.
It's a they both have very different lines through that chicane. It's sort of a bit of a shallower entry for Davies, whereas Schultz sort of goes out wide and tips it in, and it seems to be working out better for Dwayne. And this is the part of the track where you just absolutely have to thread the needle, and it's remarkable that these guys have done it so often. We've got a car in the pits, and because I've just heard the... Oh, is that Lewis Wedding? He's lost his rear wing.
It is Lewis Wedding. He has lost his rear wing, so it must have been pushing. He does have about 50... Oh, he's got over a minute. He's got a minute and 20 seconds to get out before Aiden Schultz, so I imagine he'll be alright. But that must be frustrating with only 3 laps to go. The
trouble is there's such little margins for error in this track. If you haven't got the car turned in quite enough as you go over the crest, you're greeted by a lot of grass and no ability to stop. And that spat him straight off into the wall. And Lewis Wedding with a sizable amount of damage to get repaired. And he wants to be careful here. He can lose the position to Philip Boak without losing any points.
Still stationary.
But Schultz and Davies, where are they?
45 seconds over Schultz and Davies currently, so he should be alright, I would expect. He is still stationary. He is revving the engine, so up there he goes. So he will have about 30 seconds in hand over Schultz and Davies, which is probably cutting it closer than he would like to, as he loses the position to the non-existent Philip Boak. But is still dropped himself down to 5th place from a comfortable 3rd for the race, although in points he will still retain 3rd place. Would be frustrated, just a little bit of a skill error, I guess, with a couple of laps to go, just making it a little bit more painful for him.
It's been an up and down race for Lewis Wedding. The roller coaster of fortunes has gone. He goes deep at turn 5, and Cam Rutledge, hope he's seen him there on the inside. Rutledge is a couple of laps down. Well, more than a couple of laps down. He's 4 laps down. Last time I looked, he was a couple of laps down.
3 laps down is Cam Rutledge on Lewis Wedding.
But 4 laps down on our race leader, Kurt Stenberg. So it's not been a great race for him, but he's kept it on the track. And so he's going to get a decent handful of points. Even though he's last, he's ahead of a lot of guys who didn't finish today.
And speaking of Stenberg, he is coming down the start-finish straight and crossing the line in 1st place for the finish of the race, which snuck up on us slightly.
Because we're looking at cars who are 4 laps down. So well done, Kurt Stenberg. Here comes Brenton Hobson. In the end, a little bit of a distant 14 seconds behind for 2nd place, but with an injured back, he'll be pretty pleased with that one. And that means that Brenton Foley, who's currently driving through the grass, will finish in 3rd place and the only car who's remained on the lead lap.
Excellent work for Foley. He would be very proud of that effort to come home in 3rd, even if actually, well, 1st in the Pro AB, or Pro Am, sorry. So
Super 2, yeah.
Well done. Flash those lights.
Oh, and Philip Boak, did he finish? Yes, I think he did. He was a lap down, so a big crash for Philip Boak in celebration of his 4th place, despite not being here.
Yeah, it's a damn shame. If only he was here to take 2nd in the Pro Am.
Aiden Schultz prevailed over Dwayne Davies in that battle over 6th place.
And Cam Rutledge finishing the last of our finishes in 8th place, only completing 44 of the 48 laps. So excellent work for him, as Foley is doing some excellent donuts.
Yes. And he's doing a very good job of those donuts. And speaking of donuts, we've got Lewis Wedding here. He's joined us. It was a race of changing fortunes for you, Lewis. You had a good start. You made up places. Looked like you had 2nd place at one stage, but then a late race crash, and in the end, it's 5th place, but 3rd in class.
Yeah, that's it. Like, it was pretty. Aside from the first couple laps where I was sort of trailing Hobbo and Kurt there, it was a pretty dull race, to be honest. Obviously, when Steen looked like he was going to try and one stop, then he pitted 1 lap short. So I was like, okay, well, that's him covered off, and then unfortunately, the safety car came out. If it had come out probably 2 laps later, it would have been interesting. Obviously, I would have pitted by that stage because of the strategy that I was on, and everybody else I would have caught up under the safety car and stuff. But I didn't have the pace to match the front two, and I was just faster than Foley behind me. And then obviously Hobbo made a mistake, and I just wanted to cruise home, and he made sure I couldn't do that, and had a little bit of a battle there, and made a couple of slight mistakes. And then the big one on the second last lap there, I just took it in fourth instead of third, and just thinking I just want this race to end because I couldn't really gain anything, and yeah, just spun it really silly, and ripped the rear wing off and damaged the suspension, and then had one lap after the pit stop. But all in all, I mean, I drove as fast as I could out there, and it's just that obviously the guys that finished in front of me in class anyway, they were the class above what I was today. I mean, they were very, very fast today.
They certainly were. It was a great battle up front with Brenton Hobson and Kurt Stenberg, and Hobbo, I get a feeling you might have been a bit disappointed with the timing of that safety car because it neutralised the strategy of the race. It looked like, I mean, you got the undercut in the first stint. Were you trying to undercut him in the second stint as well?
I didn't really know what I was doing. Honestly, I was just that's
terrifying.
Take it by one lap at a time, and the safety car really didn't matter. We were locked together for a battle, and it was going to be interesting to see how it panned out. The undercut worked at the first stop, but I didn't know if it would. I sort of threw away a bit of a gap there just before the stop, so I was lucky to get that back. And then yeah, another mistake immediately after the restart's what cost it all, really, because it put me behind Lewis for a couple of laps. And then as soon as I got clear, I had another chance at trying to catch Kurt, and just another error again with the spin. And you know, I was battling tonight. I really was. And by the end, I'm sort of just sitting whining on the floor and can't barely lift my feet up off the pedals. I can't barely push the brake. I'm just really struggling. So to make the finish, is pretty happy with that. And we achieved what we came to do, which was bank points. But it is a shame, you're right, because we had a hell of a race lined up there with Kurt. It looked like it was going to be good fun. I don't know if he was really going as hard as he could throughout that race, but if he was, I certainly was, and it was shaping up like it might have been an excellent battle, but never mind.
Well, yeah, you're. I mean, we heard from you at the beginning of the broadcast with the issues with your back, so sounds like it was a bit of a struggle throughout, and it was it just adrenaline, or what was keeping you going?
Pretty much stupidity, I think. But we'll see how I'm thinking about it tomorrow when I have to get up again. But yeah, I just battled away, really. I was desperate to come in and score points, and you know, my plan was to put Scott Nolan in the car tonight for me if I could make it, and he would have done really well and put up a great effort if that was the case. I think he was running near the top 5 there until he had a drama. So, you know, that would have been a fine option to do as well, and I would have been happy to do that. But I hate the idea of taking it out of my control and wanted to just turn up and score points. You know, I couldn't afford to just throw away around. So that's why I was here, and I achieved what I came to do, so I'm happy with that.
Well done. Well, that's 3 second-place finishes on the trot now, so extending your championship lead over Lewis Wedding. Well done, Brenton Hobson.
Yeah, thanks. That's the goal, is to score points. I just want to throw a shout out to Kurt as well. He did a great job tonight, 'cause he didn't make any mistakes when I did. So well done to Kurt. It was a good fun battle. Hopefully we can get one on him soon.
So there was. Well, turning our attention to Kurt, 3 wins in 6 races now for you. It was one that you looked like you were just content at the beginning to sit back and wait for the race to come to you.
Yeah, I was happy to get my first pole position. That was a good thing. But yeah, I knew I'd be weak off the start. I always am. So I was hoping I'd get the start on Hobbo, but it didn't quite pan out. And from that point onwards, I thought I'll just sit behind him, knowing what the tyre wear's like, and it's a very, very difficult track to overtake at. So. And yeah, he made a little mistake. I got past. My plan for pits was to cover him, so just pit whenever he pitted, and he obviously pitted undercut me. I wasn't sure whether I had a fuel advantage or what the go was in the second stop, so I was just trying to stay with him again and set up for the end to race him. But yeah, that safety car was interesting and neutralised the field. I don't know if it helped me or it didn't, but yeah, definitely what happened after the safety car did with Hobbo going deep into 3 and letting Lewis by. I wasn't disappointed by that.
I bet you said on the call you probably thought all your Christmases had come at once when that happened.
Yeah, it made it a bit easier to not have him on my bumper under pressure, but I knew he'd come back at me once he got back past him. But I was just happy just to conserve and make sure I didn't throw the thing off the road. It's very, very difficult track. Very easy to throw it off the road.
Yeah, especially you and Hobbo for most of the race were nuts to butts, as we say. One of your noses was right up the other one's rear end for many, many laps, and that track's hard enough to go around by yourself. So some incredible trust and respect between the two of you to not be crashing each other off at every possible opportunity.
Yeah, that's exactly right. There was one stage there where I had a bit of a scare and almost ran into Hobbo, and I was scared after that restart as well, and I saw him go deep in there that he was going to hit me, but yeah, no, it was pretty good. It's disappointing we didn't actually get to have a battle on track, like actually passing and whatnot, so that was going to shape up at the end, but didn't happen.
Well, fantastic, great job, and thanks for joining us as you have for most of your races. So thanks again for joining us. A great win for Kurt Stenberg, and in the Super 2 category we also had Brenton Foley winning his class and finishing on the podium in the end with the issues that beset Lewis Wedding. Brenton, are you with us?
I am. I think I'm battling a headset issue, but I'm kind of hearing most of it.
All right, we can hear you for the moment anyway. So tell us about your race. It seemed in the end it was a bit of a lonely old race, but you had a bit of a battle with Brody Steen going there. Yeah,
I had a pretty good battle going with Brody. He ended up getting me when I was down on tyres towards the end of my first stint, and then I think I got the bit of the undercut on him and came back out in front of him. But I think, as I said to you before the race, I just wanted to make sure I finished this one and stay in it for the championship. So I didn't want to put up a massive fight over one that wasn't really worth it for points for me, but it was a lot of fun.
Certainly looked like it. Well, that's pretty much all the time it's pretty much all we've got time for. Madbird, what's your major takeaway from tonight?
It's a scary track, and it was impressive to watch everyone go around it for 48 laps, more or less intact. I'm honestly amazed we only had 9 people crash out of the race, to be honest. Honestly, everybody who finished the race deserves a clap on the back, because that is a punishing circuit. So well done, everybody, but especially obviously our winners, Brenton and Kurt, and our podium sitters, Brenton Hobson, Lewis Wedding, Philip Boku wasn't here, and whoever the third one was for Pro-Am.
Yes, and well, that's pretty much, as we mentioned, all we've got time for. Let's have a look at what's coming up in the week ahead for Automobilista Australia. Sunday night, we'll see the Argentine Grand Prix in the continuation of the 1997 Formula 1 season. That one coming to you from the Buenos Aires track. And that's actually in-game, so no downloads for that one required. The Buenos Aires number 6, I believe it is, if you're looking for it. Rookie Cup continues on Monday and that should say Yacarapagua, not Yacarapagual, so beg your pardon for the spelling error. That's round 3 of that particular championship, followed on the Thursday of next week by the second round of the Porsche Cup from Pukekohe. That's about all we have time for. I've said it the third time now. Got to think of another way of saying that. Thank you very much indeed for watching. Bye for now.
I think this is about all we have time for.